6 months passed. The council waited for humanity to come crawling back. They never did. The first problem appeared on the medical world of Veloxy Prime. For 50 years, humans had supplied the galaxy with biosynthetic organs, hearts, lungs, livers, all grown in laboratories using technology that humans had invented. The council had never bothered to learn how to make them. Why would they? Humans were happy to do the work. Now the supply had stopped. High Counselor Dreth sat in his private chambers, reading the hospital reports. Waiting lists that used to be days long were now months long. Patients were dying. His own daughter, Sela, was among those waiting. "How long?" he asked the doctor on the screen. 6 months for a new heart, the doctor said. "Maybe longer. We are trying to reverse engineer the human technology, but it is very complex. We cannot figure out how they did it." "They are just humans," Dreth said, his voice rising. "Simple, emotional creatures. How can their technology be so difficult to copy?" The doctor had no answer. Neither did anyone else. 3 weeks later, Sela died in her sleep. Her heart simply stopped. Dreth held her cold hand and felt something he had never felt before. It was not grief. It was the first crack in his pride. Far across the galaxy, Captain Li Junho guided his cargo ship through empty space. The trade routes that used to be crowded with ships were now silent. His vessel, the Silent Dawn, carried medical supplies, food, and machine parts. But none of it was going to Council Worlds. A signal appeared on his screen. Someone was trying to contact him. "Human vessel, this is the Keth trading station. We wish to negotiate. We can offer very favorable terms." Junho looked at the message. His finger hovered over the response button. Then he turned off the screen and kept flying. His co-pilot, a young woman named Sarah, watched him with curious eyes. "You are not going to answer them?" she asked. "No." They sounded desperate. "They are desperate," Junho said. 6 months ago they voted against us. Now they want our help, but they are not sorry. They just want things to go back to the way they were. "How do you know?" "Because they said, negotiate. They still think this is about money and trade. They do not understand." He paused and looked out at the stars. "We are not punishing them. We are just done. There is a difference." Sarah nodded slowly. She was young, born after humanity joined the council. She had grown up being told that humans needed the other species to survive. Now she was learning that the opposite was true. On the Keth homeworld, things were getting worse. The atmosphere processors that kept their planet breathable were failing. Humans had built these machines 30 years ago, when the Keth's original systems broke down. The council had called it a gift. The Keth had called it charity. Now, with no humans to maintain the machines, oxygen levels were dropping. Prime Minister Gall of the Keth addressed his parliament with fear in his eyes. "We must find a solution. Our children are struggling to breathe. Our elders are dying." "Can we not fix the machines ourselves?" one minister asked. "Our engineers have tried. The human technology uses principles we do not understand. They offered to train us years ago. We refused." "Why did we refuse?" Gall was silent for a moment. The answer was shameful, but it was the truth. Because accepting their training would mean admitting we needed them. We were too proud. The parliament fell silent. Pride had seemed so important back then. Now it felt like poison. In the shadows of council politics, something else was happening. The Mora Queen sent a secret message to Earth. She wrote it herself, using the old communication codes that humans had shared with her people. "To the human government," her message said, "I speak not for the council, but for myself. I voted for you. I believed in you. Is there nothing that can be done? Is there no path back to friendship?" The reply came 3 days later. It was only one line. "We offered partnership. You chose otherwise." The Queen read those words again and again. She understood what they meant. Humans were not angry. They were not seeking revenge. They had simply accepted reality. The Council had shown them what it truly thought of humanity, and humanity had listened. Sometimes, the Queen realized, the worst punishment is not violence. It is being given exactly what you asked for. As the months continued, more cracks appeared. Trade networks collapsed without human cargo ships. Border conflicts erupted without human diplomats to calm them. Scientific projects stalled without human researchers. The Council tried to replace what they had lost. They hired other species to do the work humans had done, but something was always missing. The Veloxi could not figure out how to make organs that did not fail after a month. The Keth engineers could not understand human atmospheric science. The other species could not mediate disputes without taking sides. Humans, it turned out, had been doing 1,000 small things that nobody noticed. They had been the glue holding the galaxy together. And now the glue was gone. High Counselor Dreth stood alone in his daughter's empty room. He had not told anyone about her death. Pride would not let him admit that he needed human medicine to save his own family. But late at night, when no one was watching, he pulled out an old photo of Sela and wept. And for the first time in his long life, he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. Outside his window, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere among them, humanity was building something new. They had stopped looking back at the Council. The Council, however, could not stop looking at the empty space where humanity used to be. 1 year after humanity left, the Galactic Council broke apart. It did not happen all at once. It happened like a building falling down. Slowly at first, then all at once. Old hatreds that had been buried for decades came rushing back to the surface. Without humans to calm them, the species of the Council remembered why they had hated each other in the first place. The Veloxi accused the Keth of stealing medical supplies. The Keth accused the Veloxi of hoarding food. Both of them accused the smaller species of not paying their fair share. Within months, the Council of 12 became the Council of 7, then 5, then 4. The Mora were the first to officially leave. Their queen announced it herself. "We joined the Council because we believed in unity," she said. "But there is no unity without respect. And there is no respect in this chamber. Only fear and blame. We are done." Her ships left Council space the next day. They settled on the border of human territory. Not asking to join, just wanting to be close to the only species that had ever treated them as equals. On Earth, Dr. Kim Soo-jin read the news reports with tired eyes. She was the head of the Xenolinguistics department, which meant she spent her days translating messages from alien species. Most of them were the same: requests for help, demands for aid, threats that meant nothing. She brought the latest batch to Admiral Choi Tae-woo's office. The Admiral was a large man, with a scarred face and gentle eyes. He had fought in 3 of the Council's wars before the withdrawal. He had seen too many human soldiers die for alien causes. 400 requests this month, Soo-jin said, dropping the files on his desk. Plagues, famines, infrastructure failures. They want us to come back and fix everything. Tae-woo did not look up from his work. What kind of requests? Polite or demanding? The Veloxi are still giving orders. The Keth are begging. The smaller species are somewhere in between. And what are they offering in return? Soo-jin laughed, but there was no humor in it. The same thing they always offered: money, trade rights, the chance to serve them again. Tae-woo finally looked up. His eyes were sad but firm. When they learn to offer respect, we can talk. Until then, our answer is no. Back on the Council station, things were falling apart faster than anyone expected. The great hall where Yuna had made her final speech was now half empty. Several of the massive chairs had been removed. The ones that remained were occupied by frightened leaders who did not know what to do. High Counselor Dreth was still in charge, but his power had faded. His silver skin had turned dull. His forearms shook when he spoke. The death of his daughter had broken something inside him, though he would never admit it. A young Veloxi journalist named Tira had been watching the collapse with growing horror. She had grown up believing that the council was perfect and that humans were inferior. Now she saw the truth. The council had been standing on human shoulders the whole time. She made a documentary. It took her 3 months to gather all the footage. Videos of human doctors saving alien lives, human engineers building infrastructure, human soldiers dying on foreign battlefields. She showed how much of the council's success had actually been human success, stolen and rebranded. She broadcast it on every channel she could reach. The council tried to stop her. They cut the signal within an hour, but by then, millions had already seen it. The truth was out, and it could not be taken back. On her small farm in Korea, Park Yuna watched the documentary on her old screen. She recognized many of the faces. Colleagues she had worked with, soldiers she had mourned, doctors she had thanked. She cried for the first time since leaving the council. When the documentary ended, her screen lit up with a new message. It was from High Counselor Dreth himself. His face looked old and broken. "Ambassador Park," he said, "please. I know we were wrong. We treated your people badly. We took you for granted. But billions are suffering. Children are dying. I am begging you, come back. Name your terms. Anything you want, we will give it." Yuna stared at his face for a long time. She remembered all the time she had stood before him, asking for fairness, and being denied. She remembered the laughter when she walked out. She remembered 80 years of service repaid with contempt. She pressed the delete button and went back to her garden. That night, President Baek Jisoo addressed the people of Earth. She was a calm woman with steady hands and a voice that inspired trust. She had been elected specifically because she understood what the withdrawal meant. "I know many of you are watching the council fall apart," she said. "I know some of you feel we should help them. Others feel we should let them burn. Both of these feelings are natural." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "But we did not leave to punish them. We left because we forgot our own worth. For 80 years, we measured ourselves by their approval. We begged for a seat at their table, instead of building our own table. That was our mistake, not theirs. Now we are free. We can choose who we help and why. We can build relationships based on respect, not desperation. And when the time comes, if it ever comes, we can return to the galactic community as equals, not servants." She smiled softly. "Until then, we will keep doing what humans do best. We will survive, we will grow, and we will remember that our worth is not decided by anyone but ourselves." The broadcast ended. Across Earth and its colonies, people felt something they had not felt in a long time. Hope. 2 years after the withdrawal, humanity built a border. They called it the Quiet Line. It was not a wall or a weapon. It was simply a marker in space, a line that said, "This is where our territory begins." Ships could cross it, but only with permission. And for a long time, no one asked for permission. The council species were too proud to admit they needed anything from the humans they had dismissed. But pride does not fill empty stomachs. Pride does not cure disease. Pride does not stop wars. The refugee ships started arriving in the second year, small vessels at first, carrying families who had lost everything in the council's collapse. Then larger ships, then fleets. Lieutenant Han Mirei was stationed on the border. Her job was to process the refugees, check their identities, scan for weapons, and decide if they could enter human space. She was 26 years old, born 3 years before the withdrawal. She had grown up, hearing stories about the council's arrogance. She had every reason to hate the aliens who came to her station with empty hands and desperate eyes. But her grandmother had taught her something important. "We were refugees once too," the old woman had said. "When we forget that, we lose ourselves." So Mireille treated every refugee with kindness, even the ones who had hurt humanity in the past. One morning, a small Veloxy ship approached the quiet line. Inside was a family of 4, a father, a mother, and 2 children. The father's name was Rel. He had been a government worker, a minor official who had voted on trade policies. Mireille scanned his records and found something interesting. 10 years ago, Rel had voted against human shipping rights. It was a small vote on a small issue, but it had cost human traders millions. She could have turned him away. Many officers would have. But when she looked at his children, small creatures with silver skin and frightened eyes, she saw something familiar. She saw fear. She saw hope. She saw the same look her grandmother had described from old Earth history. "Welcome to human space," she said. "Follow the guide lights to the processing center. You will receive food, water, and a place to sleep." Rel stared at her with confusion. "You are not going to punish us?" "For what?" "Everything. For the way we treated you." Mireille shook her head. "You need help. That is enough reason to give it." The Veloxy father began to cry. It was a strange sight, silver tears running down silver skin. His children watched with wide eyes, not understanding why their strong father was weeping. "Thank you," Rel whispered. "Thank you." Mireille watched them fly away toward safety. She thought about calling her grandmother to tell her about this moment. Then she remembered that her grandmother had died 2 years ago, peaceful in her sleep. But somehow, Mireille felt like she already knew. As more refugees arrived, a debate began on Earth. Some people wanted revenge. They wanted to make the Council species suffer the way humanity had suffered. They wanted to turn away every ship, let the aliens die in the cold void between stars. Others wanted isolation. They wanted to close the borders completely, focus on human colonies, and forget the galaxy existed. "We owe them nothing," they said. "Let them solve their own problems." But President Baek Jisoo spoke against both of these ideas. "Revenge would make us like them," she said. "Isolation would make us less than ourselves. We are humans. We help people, not because they deserve it, but because we are capable of giving it." Her words were not popular with everyone. And slowly, more people began to agree. The biggest surprise came 6 months later. The Mora Queen herself arrived at the quiet line, not in a warship, but in a simple transport. She carried no guards. She brought no demands. She asked to speak with a human representative. Mireille was chosen. They met in a small room on the border station. The Queen was massive, 3 times Mireille's size, with a body covered in hard shell and hundreds of tiny eyes. She should have been terrifying, but when she spoke, her voice was soft. "I have come to apologize," the Queen said. Mireille was stunned. "Your Majesty, you voted for us. You were our only ally. I voted for you at the end, but for decades before that, I stayed silent. I watched them mock you, dismiss you, use you. I told myself it was not my place to speak. That was cowardice. I am sorry." Mireille did not know what to say. She had prepared for demands, for negotiations, for political games. She had not prepared for honesty. The Queen continued. "I have brought no requests. I do not ask you to return to the Council. I only ask for your forgiveness, not for my people, but for myself." Then she did something that shocked everyone watching through the security cameras. She spoke in Korean. Broken, imperfect Korean, with strange sounds that her alien mouth was never meant to make. "I am sorry," she said in Mireille's language. "I should have been brave." Mireille felt tears running down her face. She had not expected this. She had not expected anything like this. How long did you practice? She asked. 7 months, the queen said. I wanted you to know that I tried, that your language, your culture, they matter to me. Mireille wiped her eyes and smiled. The queen did not understand tears. Her species did not cry. But she recognized the smile. She had learned that much. You are forgiven, Mireille said. And if you want to stay, not as a queen, but as a friend, you are welcome here. The Mora queen stayed for 3 days. She ate human food. She listened to human music. She walked through the refugee center and saw aliens from a dozen species living peacefully side by side. When she left, she carried something with her that she had never expected to find. Faith in the future. 5 years after humanity walked away, the galaxy came back to them. The meeting place was a new station, built in orbit around Earth's moon. It was called the Hall of Equals. Humanity had not asked for it to be built there. The other species had insisted. They wanted to meet on human terms, in human space, under human rules. 23 species sent representatives. Some were old council members, the Veloxi, the Keth, the remains of the original 12. Others were new, species that humanity had met and befriended during the years of isolation. Species that the council had once called primitive and worthless. Now they all sat together in a great circular room with no high chairs, no low chairs, just equal seats arranged in a ring. Park Yuna stood at the center of the ring. She was 82 years old now, her hair completely white, her hands spotted with age. She had refused to return to politics after the withdrawal. She had spent 5 years growing vegetables and playing with her grandchildren. But when the invitation came to speak at this gathering, she could not say no. I remember standing in another hall, she began, her voice still strong. I remember asking for a seat at your table. I remember being told that humans were too young, too emotional, too unpredictable. She paused and looked around the room. She saw Veloxi faces, Keth faces, Mora faces. She saw species she did not recognize. She saw fear, hope, and shame in equal measure. We did not leave to punish you, she said. We left because we had forgotten something important. We had forgotten that our worth does not depend on your approval. We had spent 80 years trying to prove ourselves to people who would never accept us. That was our mistake. High Counselor Dreth sat in the audience. He was no longer High Counselor. The title had been abolished. He was just a delegate now. His granddaughter sat beside him, a young woman who had survived because a human surgeon had worked for 14 hours straight to save her life. Dreth listened to Yuna's words and felt shame burning in his chest. He remembered laughing when she walked out. He remembered saying humans would come crawling back. He remembered his pride. His pride had cost him his daughter. His pride had nearly cost him everything. But we learned something else during our years away, Yuna continued. We learned that strength is not about winning. It is not about revenge. It is not about making others suffer the way you suffered. She smiled, and the lines on her face made her look like a grandmother telling a story to her children. Strength is about knowing when to walk away, and strength is also about knowing when to come back. She stepped back from the center of the room. A new flag was raised, not the old council flag, not any single species flag. It was a simple design. A circle of 23 stars, all the same size, all the same brightness. Today we are not creating a new council, Yuna said. We are creating something different, an assembly of equals. No species will rule over another. No species will serve another. We will help each other because we choose to, not because we are forced to. The room was silent. Then slowly, the Mora Queen rose from her seat. She walked to the center of the room and stood beside Yuna. My people stand with humanity, she said. Not as subjects, as partners. One by one, other representatives joined them. The Keth delegate, whose planet could now breathe again thanks to human engineers, a Veloxy doctor who had learned to grow organs from human teachers, leaders of the small species who had finally found a place where their voices mattered. Dreth was the last to rise. His legs shook as he walked to the center. He stood before Yuna, the woman he had dismissed, the woman whose people he had mocked, and bowed. It was a human gesture. He had practiced it for weeks. "I am sorry," he said. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of decades. "I was wrong. We were all wrong." Yuna looked at him for a long moment. She remembered his laughter. She remembered her daughter's death. She remembered all the times she had wanted to scream at the injustice of it all. Then she took his hand. "Apologies matter," she said, "but actions matter more. Show us who you want to be now. That is all we ask." Outside the Hall of Equals, Admiral Choi Tae-woo and Dr. Kim Soo-jin watched through the observation windows. Below them, the blue and white marble of Earth turned slowly in the void. "Do you think it will last?" Tae-woo asked. Soo-jin considered the question. She thought about all the times peace had failed, all the times trust had been broken, all the times hope had turned to ash. "Maybe not forever," she said. "But this time they will remember. They will remember what happened when they took us for granted. They will remember the silence." Tae-woo nodded slowly. "And if they forget?" Soo-jin smiled. "Then we will remind them, not with anger, not with violence, just by being ourselves." Inside the hall, the ceremony was ending. Representatives were shaking hands, touching tentacles, exchanging gifts. For the first time in galactic history, every species present rose together and performed the human gesture of bowing. They had finally understood. Lieutenant Han Mi-rae watched the ceremony from her post on the quiet line. The border station was quiet now. Fewer refugees, more trade ships, more friends than strangers. She thought about the Veloxy father she had welcomed 2 years ago. He was a teacher now, living on a human colony, teaching alien children and human children side by side. She thought about the Mora Queen, who still sent her messages in broken Korean, getting better each time. She thought about her grandmother, who had taught her that everyone deserves kindness. Her screen lit up with a message from Earth Command. "The Treaty of Saul has been signed. The Assembly of Equals is official. You are invited to the celebration." Mi-rae smiled and typed her response, "On my way." She took one last look at the stars, the same stars that had watched humanity struggle, fall, rise, and finally find its place. Then she flew home. Humanity had walked away without a sound. They had left the council in shambles. And when they returned, they did not return as servants or soldiers or subjects. They returned as equals. And the galaxy finally learned to listen. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds could form inside it. 12 massive chairs sat in a circle, each one made for a different alien species. Some were filled with water. Some floated in the air. Some were just holes in the ground where strange creatures rested. Park Yuna stood in the center of this circle. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had served as Earth's ambassador for 15 years. Before her, 3 other ambassadors had stood in this same spot, asking the same question. Today, she would ask it for the last time. "The human delegation requests a permanent seat on the Galactic Council," she said. Her voice was calm. She had practiced these words 1,000 times. "We have served the Council for 80 years. We have given our medicine, our technology, and our soldiers. We believe we have earned this right." The chamber was silent. Yuna looked at the 12 council members. She knew what they were thinking. She had seen it in their eyes for decades. Humans were useful. Humans were helpful. But humans were not equals. High Counselor Dreth of the Veloxy spoke first. He was a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms. His species had ruled the council for 300 years. They did not like sharing power. "Ambassador Park," he said, his voice smooth like oil. "The council thanks humanity for its service. Your species has been a valuable addition to our community. However, we do not believe you are ready for this responsibility." Yuna did not blink. "May I ask why?" "Humans are young," Dreth said. "Your species has only traveled the stars for 2 centuries. The Veloxi have done so for 4,000 years. The Keth for 3,000. You are children compared to us." "Children who saved the Veloxi from the plague," Yuna said quietly. "Children who rebuilt the Keth atmosphere processors. Children who have died in 6 wars that were not our own." Dreth's 4 hands tightened on his chair. He did not like being reminded of these things. "Your contributions are noted," he said. "But the council has voted. The answer is no." A holographic display appeared in the air. 11 red lights and 1 green. 11 species had voted against humanity. Only the Mora, the insect people whose queen humanity had saved 10 years ago, had voted yes. Yuna stared at the display for a long moment. The other ambassadors watched her, waiting for the usual human response. They expected anger, they expected tears, they expected begging. But Yuna simply bowed. It was an old Earth gesture that none of them understood. Then she straightened and spoke 5 words. "Then we wish you well." She turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the human delegation rose from their seats and followed. 20 diplomats, 15 advisors, and 10 security officers. They walked in perfect silence. Their footsteps echoed in the great hall like a funeral march. High Counselor Dreth laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "Let them sulk," he said to the other council members. "They will return within 1 cycle, begging for trade rights. Humans cannot survive without us." The other council members nodded and laughed with him. They had seen this before. Smaller species often threw tantrums when they did not get what they wanted. They always came back. But something was different this time. The Mora Queen, a massive creature with hundreds of eyes, did not laugh. She watched the humans leave with a feeling she could not name. In her long life, she had learned to read body language. The humans were not angry. They were not sad. They looked like people who had finally made a decision. Within 6 hours, every human embassy in council space began to close. Diplomats packed their bags. Flags came down. Computer systems were wiped clean. Within 24 hours, human trade ships changed course. Cargo meant for council worlds was redirected to Earth. Contracts worth trillions of credits were cancelled with a single message. Services no longer available. Within 48 hours, human soldiers stationed on council borders received new orders. They were to return home immediately. No exceptions, no delays. Within 72 hours, there was not a single human left in council space. No announcements were made. No threats were given. No wars were declared. Humanity simply packed up and left, like a guest leaving a party where they were not welcome. High Counselor Dreth received reports of the withdrawal with amusement at first. Then, confusion. Then the first hint of worry. "They are bluffing," he told his advisors. "This is a negotiation tactic. They want us to chase them and offer better terms." "Should we contact them?" one advisor asked. "Absolutely not," Dreth said. "We will not give them the satisfaction. Let them sit in their little corner of the galaxy. They will grow hungry soon enough." On Earth, Park Yuna landed at the airport in Seoul. Her daughter was waiting for her, with flowers and tears. "I saw the news," her daughter said. "I am so sorry, Mother, after everything you did for them." Yuna took the flowers and smiled. It was the first real smile she had worn in years. "Do not be sorry," she said. "For the first time in 80 years, I am proud of us. we finally remembered something important. What is that? Yuna looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, 11 species were celebrating their victory over the emotional, unpredictable humans. They had no idea what was coming. We remembered that we do not need their approval to know our worth, Yuna said. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is simply walk away. She took her daughter's hand, and together they walked out of the airport. Behind them, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The silence had begun.